Hey there, it's Dr. Detroit here, the doctor is in. Before we get started on the season finale of The Traveling Nardo, I just want to say a huge thank you. Thank you to everybody who has viewed The Traveling Nardo, who has basically been loving this series since we first released it not that long ago. I really thought this series was going to be a throwaway series. In fact, I actually thought to myself that this series was not going to take off. But you guys, that's right, all of you were the ones that helped make it such a reality. We've been to a lot of different places. We've been to Italy, we've been to Egypt, we've been to Romania, we've been to Brazil, we've been to a lot of different places this season. And, I couldn't have done it without the help of you guys. You, the subscribers, and the ones who have not yet subscribed to actually see the content. Well, I'm happy to announce that this episode is the last episode of Season 1, but it is not the series finale. Oh, no, sir. Because this is only the season finale. Because guess what, everybody? The Traveling Nardo is returning for Season 2. Actually, for Season 2, coming in early 2025. So you got some more Traveling Nardos to look forward to. But for now, enjoy the season finale of The Traveling Nardo Season 1. I'll see you guys in the next season, okay?
The Traveling Nardo is made possible by the Omega Foundation and subscribers like you. Thank you.
God, this old race is just so much fun to check out. This is pretty cool. Oh! Hey everybody! It's Dr. Detroit here, the doctor is in. You caught me at a very interesting time because I'm actually watching a classic NASCAR race right now. Here, turn around. Look at this. What you're looking at right now is a classic NASCAR race. That's right. The NASCAR Winston Cup Series, as it was once called. And this is the 1995 Pepsi 400 at Daytona. It's hard to tell on the screen here because of the copy that I have here. But you can see a couple of wily veterans, like Darrell Waltrip right there, that number 17. I believe that's Lake Speed, the 9. Dale Earnhardt's at the front of the field. You don't see him on this camera angle. And Jeff Gordon is also in this race too. So much fun to actually see a lot of these. You know, these days, NASCAR has had a really... Let me go ahead and lower this just a little bit so you guys can hear me a little bit better. NASCAR these days has just been absolutely inconsistent. In fact, these days, NASCAR loves to manipulate some of its races and also likes to create fake drama with green, white, checker finishes, phantom cautions, and things like that. But back in the year 1995, this division was at its best. There was so many people, there was so many cars, and there was just so much stuff going on as well. And you know what? Here's something interesting. It's my day off. Travel HQ is not going to be talking to me, but I have an interesting idea. In fact, I think we could probably do it. What if I were to take you guys back in time to when NASCAR was actually really fun to watch? In fact, what if I took you to one of NASCAR's first tracks that was recently revived and give you a little history about NASCAR? Would you like to go back in time and see a better version of NASCAR? You would? Excellent! Alright, so, follow me really quick, because we're going to have to figure something out here, and I think I know just what to do. Now, in order for us to go back to a time like this, we're going to have to figure out some way to get there. What can we do? Oh, I know! Wait, that's not going to work. Because that's the way to get to Egypt, not the way to get to a race. What can we do? Oh, I have a solution. Okay, here's what I'm going to have you guys do. I want you all to close your... No, that's Disney related. Oh, I got it! I know exactly what to do. Okay, in this hand right here, I can actually fling us into it, okay? So here's what's going to happen. What I want you all to do is simply this. I want you to take your hands back like so, and firmly grasp it. And then when I say 3, you're going to swing your hand like this, and we're going to be able to knock ourselves back in time. Because, you know what? I have a little bit of magic in this hand. So you ready? Here we go. Go back here. And... a 1, a 2, a 3! I'm standing here on the start-finish line at North Wilkesboro Speedway, located in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. We've traveled back to the year 1995. Now, NASCAR back then was a lot different. It was a lot, how could I put this? A lot better back then, too. Because, here's why. No stages, well, there was no Monster Energy girls for that matter. But, we also still had quite a few legends of the sport as well. So, what I'll be doing here is very simple. I'll be showing you guys what a NASCAR stock car looked like. We'll go over some of the rules of the race, and maybe if some of you are nice, you might actually take a few laps around the track. So, let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to take you for a little walk around the track, and give you some stats about North Wilkesboro. North Wilkesboro Speedway was built in 1947 and is one of the original tracks that the NASCAR Winston Cup Series actually raced on. For many years, this track saw quite a few races and saw some pretty dang good finishes as well. Many drivers, such as Richard Petty, have won here, including Dale Earnhardt, Mark Martin, and a host of others. This track is a back-home style track, meaning that it's definitely one that a lot of locals supported. Right now we are walking here past pit exit going into turn 1 and 2. You'll notice as well that the walls are the original. They actually are not the safer barriers that we have today. You also will see that the track is banked too. I believe the banking for this track is about 20 degrees at least. You can also see the old Tyson Holly Farms sponsorship as well as the Pontiac sponsorship. That was because this race used to be called the Tyson Holly Farms 400. You can actually see how steep the banking is, because I'm actually standing right here on the low groove, here in turn 1 and 2. But look at this. It's almost 2 stories high over here, especially if you go on the high lane. As we make our way out of turn number 2, we'll be heading down the back straightaway. We're actually walking right now on what's called the apron of the track. This is actually an access road that drivers can use if they fall off the pace or anything like that. You can also see too that the track actually goes uphill a little bit, because the way that this track is set up is that you actually go uphill going into turn 3 and 4 and go down the hill coming into turn 1 and 2. There's a look at some of the grandstands, as well as one of the press boxes. Now let's speed up our approach to turn 3, shall we?
Okay.
Well, that's gonna be my cue to speed up the footage a little bit. And then right about, oh gosh. That kind of works. And then we finally come in here into turn 3 and 4. You can actually see a couple of the blow-ups here, like the big Busch beer can, as well as also the NASCAR Winston Cup Series truck that actually has timing and scoring. But that will be talked about in just a little bit. As we speed along here as well. We also come to the restart zone, which is right here, that is actually marked by these 2 pillars. The restart zone is actually where the lead car could come off of turn 4 and take the green flag that is being waved by one of the flagmen up at the top of the stands. NASCAR raced here from 1947 up to the year 1996, when North Wilkesboro left the schedule. It left the schedule in favor of Texas Motor Speedway. And then for a long time, this track sat really vacant. And unfortunately, it just collected a lot of, dirt and dust and everything. But then, starting in 2019, the track was actually cleaned up and scanned for a simulator called iRacing. And then in 2021, or actually 2022, the track came back to host the NASCAR All-Star Race, which is a points-paying race. So now that we've taken a little lap around here, let's go onto pit road and check out the cars, and I'm going to show you all a little bit about how these cars looked back in the day, and we're also going to take a look at the drivers that race these sons of guns. There went one of the cars right now that is actually out there on track. In fact, some of these older cars actually are used for what are known as driving schools. So every now and then, the driving schools actually use these older cars to kind of like give everybody a chance to feel what it was like to drive a car from that particular time period. In fact, here it comes now. That'd be the Darrell Waltrip car, which we'll get a closer look at Darrell Waltrip in a bit. So here we have our first car, which is really cool. This is actually the one that you guys saw out there on track. This is the number 17 TIDE Chevrolet of Darrell Waltrip. That's right, everybody. Darrell Waltrip, or to some of you younger folks, Darrell Cartrip. Now, Darrell Waltrip, you know, he was known as Jaws. He was also the guy with the big mouth, but he also had the loudest cars of the bunch. Darrell Waltrip came into the series somewhere in the 1970s and slowly made a name for himself, winning 3 titles. This car behind me is actually what he drove during the 1990s, when he drove for Hendrick Motorsports at the time. It's also the same car he drove to Victory Lane in the 1989 Daytona 500, I should say. I almost said 1990. Unfortunately, though, Darrell Waltrip retired in 2000. But Darrell Waltrip also becomes a big part of a interesting controversial story from 1990. And as you can see, the car despawns, because this particular world, the car timers seem to despawn the cars super fast. But now, let's take a look at another car, and let's take a closer look at what these cars actually were about. What we have here is the number 24 DuPont Chevrolet of Jeff Gordon. Now, at the time that this map is actually showing, Jeff Gordon was on a hot streak. He won not 1, not 2, but 10 races that year. And he gave everybody a run for their money. Now, this body style that we have here is actually what's called a Chevy Lumina. Now, let's take a closer look at this, and let's have a look-see. So first things first, to know about the nose of the car, is that you can see the big grille opening. In fact, this car actually has 2 grills, one here at the top and then one down there at the bottom. The 2 squares that you see on both the left-hand side and the right-hand side, those are known as brake ducts. Brake ducts, or I should say brake ducts, D-U-C-T, actually helped cool the brakes down on road courses as well as also on short tracks where brakes are essential. You don't often see these, especially at the big tracks like Daytona, Talladega, or even Atlanta. Moving on now to the tire, you'll see that these cars were equipped with Goodyear Eagles that also had 5 lug nuts on it. And to take the tire off, you would absolutely need an air wrench to actually get the tire off. Nowadays, the series actually runs with the 1 lug nut. Continuing further back through the car, we have the sponsors and the number as well. Now, something to keep in mind though about these particular sponsorships. These things here, these stickers, those are not the main sponsors of this car. Those are what are called contingency sponsorships. Contingency sponsorships are actually the sponsors that are part of the NASCAR series. Nowadays, they are a lot less. But back in the day, they had a ton of them. Because you can actually see they had True Value, Winston, Busch, Gatorade. EA Sports hadn't even entered the chat yet, so therefore, it's not even on this car. Moving right along, you have the car number, which is on the which is a big, beautiful font, and you also see that there is an arrow just below it. That's what's called the jacking post. That is actually where the teams would jack up the cars, and also would tell the jackman exactly where to put the jack. Continuing further back, we would have the associate sponsorships of the car, and you can also see that this car has the same type of wheel as the front, and also has this beautiful sloping window on the back here as well. This was done for aero purposes. And then moving further back to the back end of the car, you'll see here that we have a rear spoiler on the car. So this rear spoiler, let's actually bring the camera up so you guys can see this. The spoiler generates downforce and could be adjusted at any given moment during practice, but during a race, you couldn't really adjust too much with the spoiler itself. That's because NASCAR had a little bit of a strict, how could I put this? Had a bit of a strict technical thing in tech inspection. But here's the thing. In tech inspection, if there was something that was a little bit over, NASCAR was not going to be too happy with you. And believe me, a lot of people cheated a little bit, but hey, you know, it's not cheating if you don't get caught. And then continuing on to the side, you get the same thing, but this time, now you have the area where they actually put fuel in the car. Now, to put fuel in the car, as we hear the number 4 car going out there, they needed something that could actually help them. So enter, if I can bring this over the pit wall, enter the fuel can. So this is actually the fuel can that they use to this day. Now, it still has a very similar structure. Let me show you. So they actually put this into the hole behind me. And then this whole canister here could actually hold up to 22 gallons of fuel. So if I was to put this in and attach it into the car like so I can get this in the right way. So right now, I'm actually putting fuel in the car itself. But here's the thing. Do you guys see that little hole that's right there, just below the right side of the spoiler? That is actually where a position called the catch can man could be. The catch can man used to be the man who would catch the overflow, because sometimes cars were not always out of fuel. They still had a couple gallons left in the tank. So other times they would need the catch can. However, when NASCAR went to a completely different fueling system, the catch can was ultimately eliminated. And what they did was simple. They added a hose right here that connected to here. And when the fuel bubbled up into the can itself, then that meant that the car was full, and away it goes. And this thing is really heavy too. I mean, this thing can weigh a ton. However, this thing is empty for our purposes. And also, 76 fuel was the official fuel of NASCAR before they moved to Sunoco. So let's go ahead and toss this back over pit wall. Oh, great. Okay, fine. I will move it over pit wall. There we go. Okay, so right now, as more of the racing school cars go out on track, we all know about the 24 car, and we all know about how good Jeff Gordon was. But in NASCAR, there was a few other drivers that made the series what it was, including one that was known by a specific nickname, and that was the Intimidator. Yep, there it is, everybody. That black number 3 is very legendary. That was once driven by the late great Dale Earnhardt Sr. Dale Earnhardt was a 7-time champion. He was the second 7-time champion to actually be in NASCAR, the first one being Richard Petty. Now, Dale Earnhardt, his nickname was the Intimidator, and for a very good reason. because here's why. Dale Earnhardt was known to rattle a few cages, as he said. And so there was a good news, bad news situation if you passed Dale Earnhardt. The good news was, yahoo! I passed Dale Earnhardt! Good! That means I can continue to the race lead! But the bad news was, oh Christ. I passed Dale Earnhardt. He knows how to rattle a few cages. And he was known to do a little bit of the chrome horn, the bump and run and things like that. But, you know what? He really wasn't that much of a dirty driver. In fact, with a last name like Earnhardt, you could do almost anything you wanted to. The thing about Dale Earnhardt that brought a lot of fans into the sport was that everybody wanted to see this black number 3. But he was a blue number 3 when he was in his early times in the 1980s when Wrangler sponsored him. In 1990, he traded in this beautiful blue and yellow car for the beautiful black, silver, and orange car that you see today. And the orange actually comes from the little red stripe that's actually right there underneath the number. Now, Dale Earnhardt won 7 championships, his last one being in 1994, so a year prior to this map. But there was one specific race that eluded him, the Daytona 500. He had won every single thing that you could win at the Daytona International Speedway. He won the Bud Shootout, he won a dual race here or there, he won the NASCAR Busch Series races, and he even won in the July Daytona races. But that win has always eluded him. Either he was caught up in a wreck, or he just wasn't there at the right place at the right time. However, in 1998, he finally did it. In fact, everybody held their breath, and thanks to a late race caution, after so many years, Dale Earnhardt finally won the Daytona 500. After 20 years of trying...
20 years of frustration, Dale Earnhardt will come to the caution flag to win the Daytona 500. Finally! The most anticipated moment in racing. If John Elway can win the Super Bowl, Dale Earnhardt said he could win the Daytona 500, and if he comes around under caution to complete this final lap, the taste of long-awaited victory will be his.
Richard Childress, you have tried so hard, so long, you have done it. What is it like to finally win the Daytona 500?
Unbelievable, unbelievable. This team this year, we took all winter, and I can't say enough about Dale Earnhardt, Jim Goodwrench stood behind, and most of all, our race fans. Unbelievable.
Sorry about that, everybody. Seeing that old footage brings a tear to my eye because of how cool he was. Sadly, though, Dale Earnhardt lost his life in the 2001 Daytona 500, coming into the last turn on the last lap. While his DEI teammates, DEI meaning Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, because that was the team that he owned at the time, his teammates, Michael Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt Jr., sped on, with Michael Waltrip winning the Daytona 500, and Earnhardt's son, Earnhardt Jr., coming home in second place. It was definitely a dark day that year, and it would take about 6 months, well, almost 6 months, before an Earnhardt came back to victory lane. When Dale Earnhardt Jr. returned to the track for the Pepsi 400 in July of 2001, he used lessons learned from his father to score the victory. And to this day, that's the race that everybody said began the healing for NASCAR and the fan base as well. I had mentioned that this place was the site of controversy. That's because this race saw a very interesting thing happen in 1990. So let's turn the clock back a little bit. In 1990, NASCAR didn't have electronic timing and scoring like they usually do. Instead, the timing and scoring was actually done via officials. So there would be a bunch of officials around the track that would be watching each car and basically timing them to see exactly where they were. and if all of them agreed on something, that was your position. Well, in 1990, it was a little bit tricky to figure something out because, let's turn the clock back to the year 1990 at the first Union 400. So it's a hot afternoon, beautiful big crowd and everything like that. And the race goes on for a very long time. In fact, it's a long green flag run. Suddenly, there's a big crash that comes out of turn 2. And that's Kenny Wallace that ended up crashing. And it was also during the exchange of pit stops. So at this point, the pace car comes out. But what happens? Well, the pace car initially picked up Dale Earnhardt as the race leader. But there was a little trouble brewing. Behind me is the hauler for the number 26 Quaker State King Racing Buick that was driven by Brett Bodine. His crew chief at the time, Larry McReynolds, was looking at his notes and saying, wait a second, we're the race leaders, not Dale Earnhardt. But here's something else. Over here, Darrell Waltrip and his crew chief, Jeff Hammond, were like, no, we're the race leaders. We're the ones. We're the ones that should be behind the pace car. It took NASCAR over 19 laps of caution to actually figure out what the heck was going on and also where everybody was. But after those 19 laps, they finally gave it to somebody. And it was not Earnhardt. It was not Waltrip. It was Brett Bodine they gave it to. So Brett Bodine was declared the race leader, and once the green flag flew, he took off into the sunset and would take home a big win in the first Union 400. In fact, not only would it be his first and only victory, he also gave Buick, as a manufacturer, its lone victory in the sport. Now, of course, after the race, Darrell Waltrip was absolutely steamed. He was absolutely steamed because he figured that he was the rightful leader. Darrell went to Bill France. Now, Bill France was the creator of NASCAR and also one of the officiators of the sport. And he went to Bill France after the race and said, Bill, this isn't right, okay? I was the leader. Not that kid, not Brett Bodine. Come on, this is wrong. To which Bill France put his arm around Darrell Waltrip and said, boy, that kid just won his first race. You're going to win a lot more. Now, I mentioned something right just now. That was Brett Bodine's lone victory. In a weird twist of fate, Darrell Waltrip would sadly not go back to victory lane. In fact, he would stay in the sport up until about the year 2000, when he would retire from full-time competition. But don't feel too bad for him, because he got a pretty darn good gig afterwards. Starting in 2001, he would go into the booth and would join the likes of Larry McReynolds, the winning crew chief of the 26 car, Mike Joy, who became a pit reporter and then became a lead analyst, and Jeff Hammond, Waltrip's crew chief, would be down in what was called the Hollywood Hotel. And you can hear that a little bit. I don't know if you guys heard that a little thing there, but Darrell Waltrip would become famous for something else. Every time he was in the booth, starting I think at about 2002, he coined the second most famous words in racing. No, it's not gentlemen, start your engines. It was the famous boogity boogity boogity. Let's go racing, boys and girls. In fact, I'll tell you, even though he's no longer in the booth, we still use it to this day. And I have to admit, I've caught myself saying boogity boogity boogity, let's go racing before every single race. Whether it's a NASCAR race, or IndyCar, IMSA, or heck, even MotoGP as well. But after that, NASCAR looked into getting electronic timing and scoring. And soon, in 1992, they brought it in, and now the cars have little transponders that they can put inside the cars themselves. Behind me is the racetrack itself, but where we are we're actually on top of the suites and on top of the stands. We're actually in an area that's known as the spotter stand. And you can see this is actually where all the spotters basically go to. Now, what is a spotter, you may ask? Well, every single driver has a spotter. And that spotter is actually somebody who keeps an eye on their particular car. So the spotters usually stand right here, and let me go ahead and get the camera moved over to this side. And what they're doing is that they're keeping an eye on their car and basically checking to see exactly where it is on track. And they can tell them exactly where there's a car low, car high, car in the middle, or even a big crash or something to that effect. Spotters play a key role in all sorts of things. In fact, the car itself, or I mean, not the car itself, but the driver relies heavily on the spotter. Yeah, they do have rear view mirrors, but they don't act like the rear view mirrors on your personal car. Okay, I've shown you a lot of different things, but now I think it's probably time to get our hands behind the wheel of one of those bad boys down there. Alright, so we're going to use Dale Earnhardt's car and we're going to take a few laps around here. You'll see it from all different perspectives, but yeah, let's go racing. Oh, how was that, everybody? That car felt really, really good. In fact, I think my best lap was like a 24 something. Let me take a look at the actual data. Woo, 24:28 with this car. Pretty cool, isn't it? And there goes one of the students right now. So, my friends, we did some runs in Dale Earnhardt's car. But you know what? I know some of you watching are 90s kids. And you can't have Dale Earnhardt Sr. without Jeff Gordon. So, how about I do a run in Jeff Gordon's car to wrap things up, eh? What an amazing run. You know, driving that number 24 car just brings back a lot of great memories. Because not only was I a big Jeff Gordon fan growing up, but also I wear his number 24 proudly whenever I sim race. But you know, being here at North Wilkesboro and just seeing all the sights and all the classic stuff that we got to see is absolutely amazing. And, you know, unfortunately, this is going to be the season finale In fact, we're out of time, unfortunately. But it's okay. It's okay, friend. Don't cry. 'Cause you know what? Season 2 is not that far away, friend. Yeah. We're gonna be back together again. Have some more fun. Travel HQ will give us some more places to go to. And if you're good, we might actually end up right back here to probably have some fun. Maybe run a few more stock cars or something. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Traveling Nardo and for this season. If you guys want to see more of those, make sure you hit the like button, don't forget to comment, and also subscribe. And I'll see you all next time. And, let's see. You know what? I don't think the racing school would mind if I, took this car for my private collection. You know, just you know, for science reasons. See you on the next season.